Okay.
Action.
All right. We're here today at 2019 Black Tech Week Conference. I'm here with the founder of Black Tech Week with Miss Felicia
Hatcher.
How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing?
Okay, man. It was a long flight and kind of confused, but I'm excited to be here.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna try to ask a couple questions about this on your platform, and then how do you get into tech. I'm gonna try to look at this question and then memorize them. One of the questions is like, when did you start getting into tech?
When did I start getting into tech?
I mean, what were you doing actually? What were you doing before you got into tech?
What was I doing? A lot. I'm half Jamaican, so I've had a lot of jobs. And, I started into tech. I taught myself how to code when I was in high school. I was one of the first of my friends to get my own laptop, which dates myself, right? Pretty much, but. My parents were just like, here, you can get this thing that you keep bugging us about. We don't know what you're going to do with it really, but just don't break it, kind of thing. And so it allowed me to be able to tinker and learn, break things, put things back together.
So you pretty much teach yourself how to use computers?
I taught myself how to use computers, yeah, but really be able to use it, right? And so you're talking about back in Dreamweaver days and early design days and learning how to do all those stuff.
So what was you doing, say after college? What kind of job do you have?
Yeah, I worked in experiential marketing for a while. So I worked for Nintendo and I worked for Sony.
Okay,
so experiential marketing.
Into the field.
Yeah, well, into the field, but just on the product launch side, right? And so product launch, experiential marketing, launching new video games. I was on the team that launched Wells Fargo's Second Life video game when every company was trying to get into Second Life. At one point, we remember Sims, every major corporation, it all of a sudden became a thing, and then every corporation was trying to create this Second Life because they thought it was going to be the new wave. So I was a part of that team that launched that across the United States. I worked for the NBA for a while, so I was a front office marketing manager with the Minnesota Timberwolves, but specifically I headed marketing for the Minnesota Lynx, so the WNBA team.
I do have a lot of jobs.
I've had a lot, and that doesn't even compare. I worked in telemarketing at one point. In high school, I was a security guard at one point.
So what made you decide to say, okay, I did have those great jobs and great career, and say, okay, I'm gonna stop that and I'm gonna start doing my own tech businesses.
I wish it was more sophisticated than that, right? It was literally just I lost my job in 2008 when the economy tanked, and if I could have found another job, we probably wouldn't be at Black Tech Week. Just being honest, right? I couldn't find another job in my field. So I moved back to Florida, not only with myself, but with my husband, to my parents' house, and I launched a popsicle company, right? So I ran a gourmet popsicle manufacturing company for 7 years with my husband. A lot of trial and error, pretty much turned my parents' kitchen into our lab, but they were really supportive. At least they look supportive when I looked at them. I'm sure the bedroom conversations are completely different. What the hell is my child doing with his life? But, Code Fever kind of came about where we were here as entrepreneurs in Miami.
So Code Fever was the first tech platform, not Black Tech?
No, so Black Tech Week is an initiative of Code Fever.
Okay.
And so I think people think they're three separate things, but they're all initiative under one organization, which is a nonprofit, Code Fever.
Okay, so.
And we've kind of outgrown our name, so we're trying to figure out a rebranding strategy for 2019. But we still do, we started off as a coding and startup school for African American Caribbean youth. Really just to we understood there was a huge need and also area of opportunity for our community here in Miami, and we just weren't a part of the conversation at all.
So what was your biggest struggle as you start this platform? Because I know it's not easy to start a tech platform.
The biggest, all of them were big problems. I mean, not having the money to start it.
Say this biggest struggle that almost make you quit and again and try to think about something else.
You ask me overall or just this week? Because I quit for every Black Tech Week. No, seriously, my partner started. Can you ask him? He'll show you the text messages. I quit before every Black Tech Week every January.
Well,
I was like, I'm done with this.
but that was like one or two part of what struggle and what kept you to continue going doing it.
A lot of reasons. One, we're 5 years in. Two, I still believe in this work and the potential of our people and our community. Three, we have so many success stories from young people that have been placed into jobs to, this one young girl, she was just like, I have more job offers than I know what to do within cybersecurity. And her first entry point into tech was one of our first Code Fever events. And I was just like, we didn't even fully know what we were doing. We were just it was just, it was Derek and I, just so passionate. We would find these places that had computer labs, and we would find the kids, and we would just train. And so to meet this young girl at all across the country in California at a Black Enterprise event, and she was just like, you probably don't even remember me, but you guys taught me, you guys are the reason I got into tech. I'm graduating this year, and I have more job opportunities in cybersecurity than I know what to do with. And it's for more of that, and that's kind of the fluffy nonprofit stuff. But people have gotten funded from the connections that they've made either at Black Tech Week or from being a part of the VC in Residence program. And then there are all the stories that we'll never actually hear about, right? And just the magic that happens when you bring all of us together. And sometimes people will discount that. Does Miami still need another conference? Does it need X, Y, and Z? It needs all of that. Yeah. And then some. And then, for as much work as we do and other organizations that support our community, we all need to exist. And there are still a ton of holes that need to be filled because, Miami has not had a significant Black tech startup that has exited yet, right? If we use that as the same metrics of success as other startup ecosystems, but you have people raising money. You have a lot of people that are here, a part of the startup ecosystem, and then go other places and raise money, right? You look at Court Buddy and them being able to raise a significant amount of money, but they started here in Miami.
So the biggest, I have two obvious questions. One first question is, how can we encourage, because a lot of stuff I see, a lot of us will start company, but they will not hire a lot of us. That is the biggest problem. I say okay, I see the founder and 9 are the non-minority, right? Or I see 2 Black person. How can we, yes, we want to be, we all cannot be entrepreneur, but we all cannot. So how can we you say we can be more, not just want funding and go out and employ other people, but how can we try to encourage each other to hire more of us?
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you I can solve for some, personal issues that some people just have, right? You could be Black, African American, whatever, and still have a complex issue with your own people and valuing the talent, right? That's just, we see it all the time. I think that the answer for that is kind of why you see Code Fever in so many different buckets, because we have our youth programming, we're trying to help entrepreneurs.
So the goal is hire more of us so they can find, enough employer, people who that's more, that know what they're doing, so they cannot say that they cannot find.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking specifically about South, we do have a skills issue, right? And so you have a lot of organizations that are training for things that corporations are not hiring for. We were trying to place people with a big technology company here last year, and we set really high goals. We're going to be able to fill all these positions, and then we realized they wanted C++. We could not find anyone in our network that had C++, right? We cast a national net, and we still were having trouble being able to find that. And you can easily say, Black people don't have this, but no, that's an ecosystem problem across the board, right? And so none of the organizations could actually supply us with the talent needed to be able to fill those roles, and that's a problem across the board, race or not race, right? I think as it relates to us hiring more of us, there was a study that came out, and I want to say Harvard, one because it sounds cooler when you can quote a Harvard study, but there was a study that came out that in order to increase the number of young people that are being hired, especially in STEM fields, you first need to increase the number of successful and viable businesses and startups that exist. Because when we start businesses, we're more than likely to give a young person that looks like us, has had a similar background, went to the same kind of school, their first opportunity as opposed to, and that's not just like black people, that's women in hiring roles and positions, that's Hispanics, like that's across the board, right?
And that is the goal, and that's what I thought, because usually when I'm assuming if I'm a white person, of course, this company most likely going to be white, but I would assume if we try to encourage more of us to be entrepreneur, that will be the how you get more of us to into. That's how I see it in the finance world. That's how I see it in the but it's not in the technology world. It's not trickle down into that, but. To not continue, because it's a long process. To continue the conversation, what can you tell a youth person who's like trying to get into tech space but doesn't know what field they want to get into? They kind of doesn't know what part of technology they want to get into, whether it's like engineer, software development, or like a startup company themselves. How do you tell them to find themselves in the tech world?
Before I answer that question, two things that are not a part of that conversation of like how do we increase and like hire more people are there's not a policy conversation that's ever had about that because a policy also has to support that, right? The incentives for corporations to do these things has to be there, and it's very much a grassroots conversation, right? And never that's not what I'm talking about, right? Okay. So like you have, from a policy standpoint, you have innovation funds that are set up in states all across the United States that are not set up here, that literally give startups funding in order to fuel their business, right? It's a capital injection that they have, and oftentimes they don't have to pay back. Israel, Tel Aviv is a prime example of that. At one point in time, they had a program that was giving, I want to say $500,000 to high-tech companies. And if that company failed, they did not have to pay that money back. That is a game changer. What? No, seriously. And so that's the story that's never told when we are so excited about the high number of exits that they had and the most successful start and all this. But like, at no point in time do people tell you that the government was giving people $500,000, that if they failed, they did not have to pay back. So if I could give him $500,000 and her $500,000 and like all these entrepreneurs $500,000, that's a game changer. That's a huge injection of cash. Then you can hire the talent that you want. You can hire as many black people, you can hire as many young people as you want, and you have the luxury to innovate. And so we're competing against that, right? But that's also policy, because the government did that. In Ohio, Jumpstart Fund, the government does that. New York with, I cannot remember the name of the program, they do that. The state of Florida has a Florida Opportunity Fund that funds technology companies, and in the 13 years of its existence, they have never funded a black company. Like, those were the words out of that guy's mouth to me. And so those kind of changes have to happen before we see a shift in like any of this stuff.
My thing is, I understand that from a corporation standpoint, right? But my question is when is not so much, it don't have to be a policy to assuming a person of color to start a company or co-found a company where you doesn't seem to intellectually think about employ your own group. So for a corporation, I understand because you want to make sure everybody be part of it, but from because that's how you see most other country work, and I try to understand different level. I go to different conference for like Hispanic, even though they're people of color, but like I go to Hispanic group where there's no black people there. There's they're just majority Hispanic, right? And I go to there's a lot of Jewish people there. I go there, they do effort to hire them, but you know what I mean? So I'm not.
But we also hire our own. We all because no, I'm not going to accept that, right? And I don't want to like argue on your show, but I'm tired of us the rhetoric around we don't work with each other, we don't hire each other. It may not, the numbers may not be there, but we have to stop with these general like statements around the Black community, because we do work with each other, we do hire each other, we do business with each other, we do these things like. But because it doesn't look like it looks like on the other side, or because we've been so blinded to the fact that people keep telling us that these things don't happen when we are in rooms together, right? Like, we don't even acknowledge like these things exist. Like, you look at Black Tech Week, our photographer is Black, the host is Black, the company we use to print our shirts is Black. Like, I can go on a long list, and if it's not Black, it's female. If it's not female, it's minority, right? But then we'll sit here and say, we don't hire our own, we don't support, and I can go through a long list of companies that I know do the exact same thing. And so it has to stop with how we talk to each other and the message that we spread about each other, because that's not true. And I've traveled the world, like I can go on a conversation about what I experienced in the conversations that I had in Israel. I can go on the conversations that I had in church. You don't think they infight? They infight all the time. They don't get along. A lot of them don't support each other, but a lot of them do. But as long as the brand of this certain group says they support each other, that's all we're going to believe. And as long as we constantly say we don't support each other in the Black community, that's all we're going to see.
My standpoint is not in a sense of mindset. Of course, some of us do, but my sense of point is to acknowledge the problem, is to highlight the problem, right?
But it's not always a problem. That's my thing, right? Like,
yes,
it's a problem because it's become very convenient to easily say and rattle off like these are all the problems that exist in our community, that we never ever work together, and that's definitely not the case.
My platform is to highlight a Black technology company created by Black people, and to encourage the youth to follow the technology. My problem is not only focused on the negative, but I also like to highlight some of our issues and open people's minds and say, oh yeah, you know what I mean, if I see a hatred, so it's never coming in a sense of negativity or highlight negativity. It's in a sense of, okay, if there's a problem, let's highlight the problem so people can be more aware of it, so we can fix the problem. It's not about the idea of Black people doesn't work together, or Black people, where we do, there is a sector where we work each other, and of course we get, to some degree we get another sector, but then also what I'm explaining to you is in a sense of trying to hide each other. As in different sector we do, in different sector we don't. So the problem is not to say, oh, Black people doesn't work together, but more to say, okay, in this sector we're not doing a better job of doing each other, and so we can be, like I said, to do better we must acknowledge our problem so we can solve it. So that is certainly what I'm trying to do, is to say, oh, there's a problem over there, let's acknowledge it, and how can we do better at it. That's simply the way I'm trying to talk about it, the problem. But the problem is that you didn't get a chance to answer the second part about how can you encourage the youth about trying to get into tech but doesn't know what route or to choose.
I would say if there is a co-working space in their city, that they need to intern there. They need to job shadow at minimum. They need to be as curious as possible about like what is possible, right? Because tech is so broad that there's so many different roles that they can play. And then it's the same thing I tell all young people. I'm like, you're young, like you can infiltrate a company like never before, right? So like as a 15-year-old kid, you could just be like, I want to job shadow you for the day. Also, like I want to look at your books. They may say yes to you. They're never going to say yes to me, like, hey, can I see your books? I want to see what's going on. I want to see how you do that. No, like they're not saying that to a 35-year-old person, right? But as a 15-year-old, a 16-year-old, a 17-year-old, even a college student, like people will like pull back the curtains and show you things that you could never believe, but just asking it. Because again, like the rhetoric, like the narrative around young people is like they're lazy, especially millennials. They're lazy. They don't want to do anything, blah blah blah. So
I feel like it's more older people who say that. More say younger adult doesn't seem to say stuff like that.
Yeah, but I mean that's a you can use that to your advantage, right? Because if the narrative is that, and you come in, you show that like, hey, you're not only hungry, but you're curious, and you genuinely want to learn from this person, you would be surprised what they teach you, right? You'll be surprised how they take you under your wing, and not enough young people will do that, right? Not enough young people follow up, and like, you know, I'm the firm believer that you can be a mediocre person in life, but if you are a follow-up ninja, like you can still like no, seriously, because like we all know those people. Like, I'm just gonna tell this person yes so they can stop emailing me, they can stop calling me, and like you'd be surprised. Like most people that are follow-up ninjas are like undercover millionaires. Like I'm telling you, they are.
Alright, thank you so much. We're not gonna stay too long, but we thank Felicia so much for sitting down with us and talk to us about his platform, and hopefully she doesn't quit and continue to do it, even though I know it's a hard thing to do. Thank you, Felicia, again.
Thank you, Carl.
Have a wonderful day.
You too.